we're Souls Extolled, and we're an Austin band, but only JP here is from Austin. I grew up in Honolulu and a couple other places, but mostly Honolulu. And I'll let the guys introduce themselves as well.
I'm Andy. I'm from Arizona. I've been in Austin for like 12 years now.
My name is Joe. I've been here since 2010. So going on 11 years now? Yeah.
Yep. My Christian name is John, but they call me JP. I'm from East Austin, man.
And I'm Zach Black, man. So this is the band. Between all of us, I feel like we have a pretty wide range of influences, but not necessarily different influences. Maybe a different emphasis in like what the main shit that we love is. Joe is like classically trained jazz drummer. I know your favorite drummer is John Bonham from Led Zeppelin. You know what I'm saying? JP played with all the blues cats. Yeah, JP played with all the blues cats playing downtown since he was like in middle school. So he kind of grew up in like the Austin sort of blues rock downtown scene, And Andy is a keyboard bassist songwriter. If you see his band Trouble in the Streets, they're like way out there in like the digital sort of side of things. And so I think we all come together in just that we love high energy rock music. And I have the privilege of sort of directing the theme towards Souls Extolled, the idea that we are like sort of praising our own freedom and praising our own souls through rock and roll. That's kind of like the direction that all the songs go towards in sort of meaning and all of the struggles and hard shit that, is all part of the lifestyle of people like us, man.
Do you feel that there's a rebirth of rock, like rock and roll, if you will? Like, I guess it kind of goes in like cycles, right? It kind of just, there's the 60s, there's the 70s. The 90s were awesome, obviously, for alternative rock and such.
I think that rock as a genre tends to have its own fluidity, and it tends to have its moments in its own context. But I think that as a lifestyle and as an energy, as something that you just feel, it transcends all of that. And I believe that like rock is truly for everyone, and rock is it's about the energy more than it is the genre in and of itself.
Do you think you're like born into it, or do you think it's something that
I think
grows
it's something you feel or you don't feel, and I think in either case it's okay. I think that it's an interpretation of the raw feelings that most people a lot of people can really like identify. But most people tend to really like cling on to those to that.
Can
energy.
I build on that?
Yeah.
And I think he's totally right. And I think that the strange thing about rock and roll now is that rock and roll is something everyone knows. It used to be a genre. Now rock and roll is basically pop. And every part of pop, whether it's like the modern rappers who simulate the rock star lifestyle, or even production-wise, country bands and all types of pop bands using what, rock and roll artists built, and before that, obviously blues artists.
The formulas.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So what's weird about it, and we
too.
find, is that there's no real... Austin has a particularly a scene for rock and roll. And there's also like an upper echelon scene of like all the rock bands who were famous in the early 2000s and the 90s still doing their corporate thing with radio stations and all that stuff. So there's those layers of it. But we found that the scenes are all in like the little genre-specific parts of rock and roll. Like we play with the reggae rock bands, and there's a bunch of people who come out to any reggae rock show. Or we play with a punk or a hardcore band, and there's a bunch of people who come out to any punk or hardcore band because they're in these like subgenres that they really are passionate about. Rock and roll at this moment doesn't really have that because it's more of a blanket over everything.
Exactly.
The debate over what rock and roll really is. I mean, we obviously have a drum set and electric guitar and stuff, and that's an easy call. But to me, a lot of rock and roll is, like he said, the spirit and the feeling, and there's a lot of hip-hop and a lot of EDM that has that fuck you attitude.
Do you think it's all coming together? Like all genres are kind of blending into one another?
I would say what I would say to that is that I was actually just looking at something today about how you had your rock of your 70s, you had your punk of the 80s, but also your what's it called, electronic of the 80s too, right? And then in the 90s, that stripped away into some kind of rock punk kind of threshold, kind of hybrid thing. And then in the 2000s, you had people who added the punk that they heard in the 80s and 90s to the pop that they also heard in the 90s and the 2000s. And then now that stuff is having a resurgence in the culture and stuff that's going on. People are mixing rap with rock, and they're mixing pop with everything else, and genres are starting to get blurred. But I also feel that rock gets too hard of a, this is gone, this isn't happening anymore.
But it's still
When it's
happening,
like
right?
when it's like it's
Yeah.
obviously a through line. There's obviously a through line between stuff that's out there now that doesn't sound like rock, but it's there.
In a way, it
It's
is.
a part.
Have you
it's
seen the
there.
movie Almost Famous?
Of course.
So when he's meeting Philip Seymour Hoffman, and he's the writer, and he's kind of like, he's like the ultimate skeptic. And, he talks about, and the bands talk about the Rolling Stone, and they talk about things that I didn't know about. Like, this is the guys who trashed, Led Zeppelin's, like, second and third record and broke up Cream and blah, blah, blah. And, I looked into that some stuff, and it was interesting. I wouldn't say I have an opinion on it. But I think that, like, generally rock and roll has more of an aggressive mentality than other genres. Maybe rap's the same in terms of the skill of rappers. At the end of the day, I feel like every real rapper knows kind of where they stand in the hierarchy of who's a badass. You get what I'm saying? And rock and roll is the same fucking way with every instrument. So there is a natural sort of competitiveness.
Do you feel
And
that competitive? I'm sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to break
Well,
you.
I think that we were talking about, when we were tripping on acid, we were talking about Modest Mouse a bunch, and I was like, dude,
That never happened.
we're both huge Modest Mouse fans, and but I was like, have we ever said that to anybody? And we were discussing, like, it's kind of the spirit of, like, new rock and roll to be so modest. Like, Modest Mouse is the perfect example because of the name and everything. You're not a rock star. You don't have long hair. You go up on stage in, like, a button-down shirt and you play your music and you're kind of stoic. And, like, it's almost like it's fallen out of style to just be an outright rocker and be like, yo, fuck you. This is what I think. This is our fucking music. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And
And
if there's
still,
anything
like,
that's what we're trying to bring
mid-90s,
back.
early 2000s music,
Grunge era.
If there's anything
yeah.
that's trying to bring back with other bands that we play with, it's that. I mean, at least me, that's not who
It's
I am.
rebellion in
It's
a
not
sense.
who
You're
I
just
am.
bringing
Rock
back,
and roll
like,
isn't like, I
another-
don't want to sit there and play music that everyone can just rock to. It's like I told you. I
That
want,
people
when
can
we
just be
play,
like, "Oh, nice
when we
picture."
play, I want the energy in the room to feel like you're either gonna rock out or you're gonna leave.
And
And if our music doesn't make you make that decision,
Yeah.
then
Do you think
then I'm
that-
missing the point
Do
of
you
what
think
we're
that
going
breaks
for.
bigger than ever now? Because I mean, we grew up with like mosh pits, crowd surfing, and I feel like every venue I've gone to, maybe not here, but like other states where they're harnessing you can't do that anymore. Like you guys can rock out, but the crowd, because I've been kicked out of shows, I've been kicked out for moshing, and they're just grab me out. Do you think there's gonna be like a rebellion that keeps going past that, like to be like, yo, no, fuck you, we'll fucking stage that, we'll do whatever the fuck we want.
I think as long as there's shows and there's people who are at the shows, security's gonna have to deal with that.
There's always gonna be security.
Yeah,
I see,
I mean,
rap clubs, people get
unfortunately,
too rowdy,
unfortunately,
like,
those folks who come through and they like catch folks who are coming through the front. They're coming from the back and they're crowd surfing all the way to the front.
Lucky for
It's
us,
part.
man.
I mean, like it's part of the experience. I mean,
That's what I miss.
you
about
know,
it's
LA.
part of the
People-
experience.
People who
and,
are throwing.
you know,
Sorry that there's human human influence.
The rock
Right.
industry,
in the
man.
situation.
The real rock
Sorry
industry
about
of
that.
all like people who are a lot older than us, in their like 30s, 40s, 50s, right? They're the ones who really own the real rock venues. Like there's downtown venues that we play at, but they'll it just depends on pulling people and stuff like that. But there's always, especially in Austin, which is why I love Austin so much. Austin has so many just like pure rock
They let
venues
it go.
that are
They're like,
owned by
yeah.
rockers,
Yeah.
right? And so it's actually the opposite. They're just appreciative to
Shout
see a
out to
band
the
in their
rock
venue
fans.
of young dudes who are going that fucking hard.
Uh-huh.
Do you get what I'm saying? Because that's just not what's going on now.
well, and also
Yeah, I mean,
too, their job
it's
is
slowing
to
down.
their job is to make sure that no one's getting hurt. No one's
Of course,
like
yeah.
no one's a
Right.
thing. So if you're still providing that fuck you rock attitude
Without cutting each
with
other's
yeah,
heads off.
without cutting each other's
Well,
head off, it's like
like-
yeah, okay, let's let these guys do their fucking
Yeah.
thing. Let's let them rock out and stuff, and let everybody have a good time, and you know. I
And
mean,
that's
has to
it.
be a
I
little
feel
bit-
like
I
feel
feel
like
good about. I
that's
feel like
the-
there's a good balance between.
Like get rowdy, but don't punch anyone.
Yeah,
I feel like-
exactly.
Also, do
I
you guys
feel
feel like we're a mosh pit type of band?
I wanted a
Ob-
mosh
Obviously,
pit
the
by
we
camera.
can be
the
My-
people
my-
decide, but
Now, I will say my
we can
my
be
favorite
if
thing.
the people feel right is so to
Right.
interpret that energy in that way. And I think that's the most beautiful thing about what we're doing, is that rock in it itself, like, we only call it rock, but I think it's an energy, it's an ancient energy that has just traversed
Always
through.
trembling
But it's
right there.
always
Yeah.
You guys
traversed.
bring it
It's
up.
traversed whether you're fucking playing in a fucking band,
Yeah.
or you're fucking chopping people's heads off and rolling them down
And
pyramids
we're
and shit,
calling
or
on
you're
that.
dancing, or you're
Well,
dancing around in a
if there
fucking
is
circle.
if there is occult
around
shit,
a fucking
I'm
campfire.
trying to
You're
yell for
fucking,
it to.
it's the
not a
energy
way
that
to
you're
do it.
challenging.
Casual.
Well,
It's not challenging.
cool
I'm
thing
saying
about
the
that-
energy that you're
well,
channeling.
And the cool thing about that, what I think John is saying, is that it's like that channel's happening.
Yeah.
That channel's happening.
The
and
channel
You
is
can tap
happening.
in, like, you can click to
Oh,
it.
yeah.
Tap into it, play
You're
into
fucking-
it.
you're
Like,
But I think to your point about like being able to do it or not anymore. I feel like the scene has grown up a little bit, and I'd like to see the scene get a little more mainstream, because it's like I've been to like Ozfest shows and stuff like that with all these old metal bands, and I've seen people just get clobbered in
Right.
mosh pits and like EMS coming out to like
I
help
say,
people.
yeah, broken
Yeah,
noses and
crazy
shit.
fucking shit, dude. But then I also, probably the most insane show I've ever been to was Dillinger Escape Plan at Mohawk.
Oh shit.
And like, I got a black eye from somebody mosh pitting and kicking me in the face. I got dragged onto stage. All kinds of crazy shit happened, but what I noticed with that crowd, and even that band's not like that new, but like they're newer than, you know, all the old school metal stuff. But like, there was a very look after each other kind of mentality in the
Always.
mosh pit, you know, like
Yeah.
a very, like if somebody hits the ground, people kind of like
Right. Stop
chill
the
out,
show.
chill out, like let this guy
Yeah.
get up. All right, now start fucking knocking shit around.
In terms of the energy at rock and roll shows and, you know, mosh pits and stuff like that, I want whatever emotions the music creates for people to express themselves openly and just to do whatever makes them feel good, however they're rocking out. But one thing I can say solidly more about our influences is that when I watch videos of like Led Zeppelin play live, or videos of the Doors playing live, I can hear it in the records, but especially the videos, there's something different going on there. And I don't think that it's necessarily their individual skills that makes it good. I think that they're a great band, like many great bands, but they're calling on something. And when you watch those videos, you can feel some type of weird vibe that's in that room that you know exists. And so, to me, I want to create that vibe. And however people react to it, fine. But I'm, as a lyricist and a songwriter, I'm very concerned that I want people to dive more into what that is. And I think that's the magic of bands like that. Is some people just listen to it and are like, Led Zeppelin's cool, but a lot of them are like, what are those symbols on their record being? What is Jim Morrison talking
So
about when he
mean
keeps
and
talking about
stuff,
the
yeah.
West and riding the snake and the blue bus? What's he talking about, right? And you ask those questions and you immediately get to literature. You immediately get
Always resorts back
to-
to that, yeah.
to people who are really at the
deep.
forefront of thought.
Yes.
And I'm equally, for
direct
me
source
personally, and
of
I won't
that
speak for all of
inquiry.
us, but I'm equally concerned of the thought that's raised by that energy and by that music as just the pure emotion of let's rock the fuck out. You know what I'm saying? I want to rock the fuck out, but there's something more to it. And without that more to it, to me it's nothing.
We're just
To
here
me
play the rhythm
personally,
section.
without that, like he said, calling on an ancient energy. You get what I'm saying?
It's
I
always
don't
there, but you
know.
guys are tapping
I don't
into
want
it,
to
so
put a label on what that is because I don't know what it
It's
is.
something.
But
Sacrificing
that's
humans.
but what I'd like
Rock and
to
roll's taking the
entice
spot.
everyone to do is not only rock out, but to dive into their own spirituality, to dive into the predicament of their own free will.
Do you
know what I'm
think,
saying?
To dive into their own to the own potentiality of their potency of as human beings in their own fucking context. We want people to push the envelopes of their own lives. You know?
Exactly, man.
We
Couldn't have
want-
said it
we
better.
want people to we want people to understand life in the way that we understand it, which is no better than themselves, but at the very least they fucking understand
The
it.
way the artist
They understand
understands
that.
The way the
You
artist
know,
understands
Well,
it.
the life rap
the
for
way
us
that they
is
own
that
that they
self-expression,
understand it in
you know?
their own artistic childish way, because that's what we're really channeling into. You know, when I'm fucking playing music, and at least in my own life, in the context of my own life, is that like I'm channeling in my inner curious child that wants to understand the world for what it is. and whatever. I mean, and I think that I mean that's a very Freudian way to put it.
But that's what it's all about, man.
But
He's got it pinpointed. It's the fantasy.
That's the way
adventure.
I interpret it. You
Do
know?
you think there's when it comes to record companies and such, do you think they're grabbing onto that inner child and directing
Well, they're
it? in a sense?
synergizing it. They're synergizing it for sure.
I feel like we're trying to live the role of the true artist in society, which is a very cocky thing to say when not that many people.
But
take
that's
your
what you're feeling.
When not that many people take your art
Well,
that
people
seriously.
shouldn't be afraid of their own
But
egos
we
at the
all,
same
in
time.
our own ways, you know, in our own instruments, and then me in terms of, I feel like more than practicing guitar or singing, I'm usually reading about the next thing that I hear about and trying to find inspiration in philosophy and stuff. So it's equally
The
about
judges lead.
the intellectual pursuit that the music can lead to. You know, you have these feelings, but for me, anytime I've had good feelings, like I love to do yoga. And I didn't know I loved yoga, but the first couple times that I really found that place in meditation, the first thing I did is I went and found a book that explained to me, why does someone who knows what this shit is explain why it is what it is. And rock and roll has that too. And I'm trying to open that pathway for people, because for us it's been freedom, man.
Do you think songwriting comes from a lot of the text you guys read? Is it more of like a reading or like a visual where you see something and then write about it, or do you read something and write about it?
I'm not a very smart man reading very high level philosophy.
Shut the
And
fuck up.
I mean, dude, I'm
Shut
telling
the
you,
fuck up.
Paradise Lost, Das Kapital, try to read it, and you're gonna be in the same boat as me, my friend.
I don't even know what he's talking about.
Bitch. It is a bitch, and you're gonna have to do what I do.
What makes it hard? Is it just more of a elderly text in a sense where
It's
it
not
doesn't vibe
it's
with
not
what we're
like,
doing?
hey man, this is how shit is. It's not like a conversation. It's like
Yeah.
like Das
It's a
Kapital
questioning of all
is the
that.
quintessential Karl Marx, by the way, if it was Capital, is a purely economic text. So you expect
It
to
just
read
got really
the
boring,
quintessential Marxist text, and you expect like revolutionary political speech in the
Yeah.
text, and that's not what you're gonna get. What you're gonna get is, imagine commodity A is X, and imagine commodity B is Y, and imagine that labor is Z, and pages and pages of how all these things interact. He's giving his theory of how economics and capitalism really works.
Do you think that's
So
like
most-
a new religious text in a
So
sense?
it's
or
just
it'll
like a more
evolve
Well,
into like a
objective
religious
view
text?
of it,
most
or-
people would argue that it is, but the truth is that most of us know something about Marxism, and everything that we know came from later texts and later leaders who manipulated that into a more solid political theory of action and politics. Marx in himself really just laid out a formulaic opinion of how capitalism works and the possible steps forward, which is where, you know. But my point is that the intellectual pursuit of these ideas that all the music represents, we all know it. We all know Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath have Satanism in it. How many of us listen to it and
they
read the
though?
Satanic Bible?
Yeah,
Oh, they
well,
absolutely
see, that's
do.
what I, that's what I was. That's what I was. You know, that's what I was
What
talking
makes
to
you
James.
think
That's
that?
what I was talking to James
I mean,
about,
they
man.
talk about
About
it.
Do you know the
about-
symbols
about-
that are the Led
They're
Zeppelin
all-
symbols,
they're all
man? It's
proud.
like Aleister Crowley, like you said.
Oh, yeah.
Aleister Crowley, who's one of the first Satanists, and then after that, fucking
First
Anton
mainstream
LaVey. You get what I'm saying? Who are like the
Satanists,
mainstream
yeah.
Satanists. You know what I'm saying?
They
And
made Satanism cool.
yeah, and Black
All
Sabbath.
the like
Classically,
all the
you know, you watch
rock
any
star,
documentary on Black
like,
Sabbath, they use the
Chili
three,
Peppers were big into.
You know, the
gold
triad of
and-
notes,
yeah,
the Satanic
triad.
Black Sabbath.
Hey, man.
They use the classic triad that was banned in the Middle Ages because those three notes were like the sound of Satan, right?
The notes.
And
so
they
like,
just use
how does that
possible.
sound though? Like I don't
And
get what you're
then
talking about,
and
like,
then
It's a-
and
it's
then
a
both
kind of-
Robert Plant and Black Sabbath, Ozzy Osbourne call on Satan in their songs. Now I'm not saying it is completely their philosophy. I don't know if they believe anything
But
like
it's there,
that.
like you know, or you feel that it's there.
But my point is, man, it is the ultimate rebellion. Like Modest Mouse, I'll give you a modern band. Modest Mouse on their second record, okay? They it's like the earlier Modest Mouse. Most people don't know most of these songs, but in the song Cowboy Dan, he has a line that says he's like, you know,
Major
Cowboy
player.
Dan's a major player in the Calvestein. Goes to the reservation, drinks gasoline. He's gonna start a war. He's gonna start a war. Goes to the desert, fires his rifle in the sky. Says, God, if I have to die, you will have to die. Yep. And so, like, to me, man, these symbols, man, it's the ultimate fucking rebellion. There's political rebellion, there's social rebellion, but most of us in the world are raised in some type of religious context where we can't shake what we were taught when we were kids, man. You're never gonna be able to shake that shit.
You can.
Do you get what I'm saying?
You can't.
So
You don't think you
for
can,
me,
though? I think
if
a lot of
no,
people
bro.
do.
No,
Like,
bro.
if I was raised secular, maybe I'd be able to shake it, bro, and I would be like, oh, dude, I'd be all like about spirituality and shit.
No,
but
man.
I'm actually the opposite.
We're
I
Hispanics.
think spirituality in a vague way is bullshit. Most people actually believe some tenet of religions they were raised with, and they adopt things like saying I'm spiritual to basically say I believe in God, but I don't want you to judge me for it. You know what I'm saying? If you get into it, right?
I think
You know
it's
what I'm
it's also in the same time it's saying that it's like it's also kind of like a it's like a proclamation of like I'm trying to interpret.
Like I don't know the
I'm
answers,
trying to
but
interpret
I'm
like
just
so basically
I want
for
to
me, man,
I want can I hit this?
If
I
if
want
say-
to I want to believe that there's something bigger than myself, but I'm really trying to interpret that right now and I don't understand it. And I think
the
that's the
fact
best way
is,
to put
man, the religions that I don't actually know about you, that me and John were raised in, if any of it's
Catholic.
real, we are fucked. So you too. If any of
I'm
what
not
we,
Catholic.
we,
I was
we, but we were
Catholic.
raised a certain
So
way. I think the point is, if guys like Ozzy Osbourne and the guys from Led Zeppelin can be great people and great philanthropists, right? My point is to show that we can all live by our own free will. We don't need some context of God or the devil to make us want to be good. We all want to be good. And we're also all bad because we all have to live in this fucking life, man. And the most people, I think the issue is, and really I would say the point of the band, is that everyone lives in their little box where they find a life, they find a job, they find a community where they're made to feel good. And they never really look at the consequences of everything they do. From the products we buy, who knows, the phones in our pockets have metal in them from slave labor, right?
Yeah.
And no one wants to go that far down the rabbit
It
hole. Wants to go
stops
far
right
down.
there,
They
yeah.
can feel like a good person, man. And to me, the philosophy is I'm not a good person. I might be like I'm not
No
gonna
matter
try
what.
to I'm not gonna try to push. I just am a person, right? I'll be good to people who are good to me, and I'll try to be good and selfless sometimes, and other times I'm gonna be selfless and I'm gonna be a piece of shit. But I think I'm much more realistic with myself about that good and evil than other people are because I fully embrace both. And when I'm doing evil things, like using a phone with that thing, to the smallest thing, to the biggest thing, I don't self-justify and try to tell everyone else, like, I'm a good guy because I'm doing this certain thing. I say, look, I'm being a bad guy right now, man. Sorry, but I'm doing this shit because of these reasons. But I'm gonna hurt somebody when I do this.
Do you feel that's
And
pushing
I'm doing
you guys
it.
into music?
In the
like
most-
that's that,
in
like
the most-
that energy right there?
In the most straightforward, cut dry terms to put it, and we don't possess adjectives in our interpretation of the world around us. So we are who we are, we subscribe to the values that we attach ourselves to, to whatever degree, to whatever however we want to, but we are in and of ourselves, man, just true embodiments of our ancestors. And so
We're mocking the
we're
idea
here.
of good and
we're
evil.
Here.
We're
here because
mocking the idea of good and evil, man.
we are mocking the idea of good and evil. It's the best way to fucking yes.
So it's like a neutral kind of fuck you to.
There is
Maybe-
there
maybe
is
some
good and
pe-
evil. man.
yes,
The
yes.
point is that you know where they lie within yourself.
Yes, good and evil. Good and
Everyone
evil.
wants to think about good and evil and look outside to everything else. It has nothing to do with you, right?
Like,
Good-
is it just what people will lead you to believe, and it's just like the plight of an artist in quick rise to the top, lots of money, lots of access to drugs, or is
And
there
it just
a lot?
explodes out of like.
Is there a
it
lot
gets
more
uncontrollable
there?
at that
Yeah,
point, right?
and were they that traumatized by some shit that also helped their art, maybe, or is there something in the music industry that's a little like more insidious? And I guess that's hard to say without actually being in there.
Right.
There's definitely a lot of things. You hear about like all the Britney Spears stuff coming out these days about her basically like
Save
being
Britney!
locked up. Yeah, save her. But it's crazy.
I shouldn't say because I don't know.
I don't fucking know. I don't know. It's weird. It's like
Like her dad dominating her
yeah.
funds or something like that.
Conspiracy theories are like a dime a dozen on that kind of shit. And it's so hard.
It's all Disney, man.
It's weird.
Everyone-
I feel like in the music industry, like I've been I've always felt like there's like a little bit of a barrier between where they're at and where local artists are.
A little bit of one.
Well, I mean, a huge. Well, yeah, I mean, but like there's the obvious ones of just like, you know, getting that family, getting a hold of the right people to get there, and like and hitting the right song that gets people excited and all that kind of stuff. That's like obviously like if you really want to hit that level, you got to have that stuff. But then it's like, I feel like there's just something that's a little enshrouded.
Well, it's like because
when
for
you get
us,
there,
man,
you
when
know,
you're a small band, you know, you have
on.
your hands in everything, right? Even if someone's helping you book a show or this and that, you have your hands in everything, and things tend to happen in a way where you work with people who you end up being friends with. You know what I'm saying? And I imagine, totally imagine at that level, that you are just making your music, but not only do you have like high level producers and all kinds of people involved in that, which I don't know where the artistic compromise comes in. Most of those big artists I know make great fucking music that I think of. So, you know, if there's compromise, it seems good. I don't know, but then everyone's booking your shows, everyone's planning your parties, everyone's setting up your whole schedule. You know what I mean?
You
And
become owned at a time.
Basically, you know what? There's just a bunch of people who I think are doing that for you, and I would imagine it all just depends on who those people are.
Do you feel like you could do it to
You know what I'm
yourself?
saying? I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
Do you think it's
Build your team
possible
inside
though?
out.
Yeah.
Well, because everyone also it's like they rely on you, so it's like
It becomes a business.
You
It
become
becomes a true business,
and
yeah.
you become a commodity, you know, because it's like
I
if
feel like
you
that-
really are the thing, then it's like I feel like there's some artists that get up there, like artists who are more maybe about just being a musician,
The
people
Gary
who-
Clark Jr.
Yeah.
Like the.
or even like the behind the scenes people, like the people who were like have played in a million different bands but you don't know their name, those
Like
kind of people.
like Charlie Sexton.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Those kind of
Good
people, and it's like I don't feel like they probably experience a lot of the craziness, but to actually be because they're not.
But they're in
commodity.
control in a sense. They're like,
Yeah.
yo, I
They're-
can give a fuck less
they're
about
a
that
play-
show.
they're a
I
player.
imagine they're being
They're on
given
the
a
same
deal every
level
time.
as a
yeah,
really
so-
good studio engineer or any of those other things, because those all are necessary things to have a really great studio guitarist on your album, to have a really great producer, to have a really great manager, as to being the thing that everyone's like, this is the name of the person that is on the album that's
Buying
getting
it.
sold.
Exactly.
I mean,
Right,
rock
like
and
what
roll-
happened to Rage Against the Machine, man? They became the machine. Like,
rock and roll.
Yeah,
rock-
right.
really
And then they
bad.
broke.
Why did they like fucking
But,
sell
but
out
rock,
like
rock
they-
and roll,
Do
man,
you think
was
that's just inevitable?
FBI.
Like
Look,
that, that apple right there, you're just like, give it to me, and then
Well,
once
yeah,
you grab
because
it,
the
you're
one
like,
guy
oh.
because the only reason why Rage Against the Machine went the way it went because there was that one guy that was like, hey, that
Give
whole
me
thing
that.
that we like, you know, that whole mission
Battle
statement that
the
we
we
should
had,
get what we
like
fucking
in the
worked
beginning
for,
of this whole
but-
thing, like kind of like stopped becoming that, and you know now he's like, you know.
I
playing
think, man, that
bongos
all
for, like,
those
Feels
rock
like it's
bands,
fizzled,
man,
man. Like
they
that
have
fucking
all those
vibe
elements that we don't know about, man. But I would imagine that it's all like the corporate business that we would generally be weary of. You know what I'm saying?
But if they buy you guys, would you go with it, or would you be like,
The truth is-
that fame, though,
The,
that fame, that
the
feeling
truth
gotta
is,
be the
I don't
best.
know what that means, man. And we have a great dynamic in our band, but we also just specialize in stuff.
It
Like
doesn't
Joe,
have the same
Joe is
context
Joe.
as it
Joe's
did
writing the paper right
back
now. Our
then
drummer
when it was
Joe.
becoming the
He's studying like all the publishing rights, all the like the
Yeah.
legal stuff. You know, what I mean, in part to be
That's
able
a
to do that for
weapon,
himself,
bro.
but in part to be
yeah.
able to do
There's
that
more
in-
autonomy
in
being
part to be able to do
given
that
the
for us.
artist.
You know, for me, man, my only goal has nothing to do with money. I just want to play the biggest rock shows, doing what we did for you guys
Get
in
that
front of the
shit
most
out
amount of
there,
people.
yeah.
So if someone told me, I don't know how these deals even work, but if someone told me we're gonna buy some rights to your
Keep
music,
it in-house.
but we're gonna for the next couple of years, bro, send you guys all over the world, book you a bunch of tours,
But
you're gonna-
never like
whatever, right?
dominate your sound. They'd be like, do what you want.
Oh,
Like that has to be. Would you say that's, like,
artistically,
the number
I'm
one
very
thing?
limited
Like, you
in
have to let
compromise.
us do what we want.
But-
But if you fuck with it,
But
we're
my
gonna say
point
no.
is, yeah, my point is though that like I'm a realistic guy, man. We're all young men. Not everyone can do this forever, man. If there's someone who wants to take some ownership of my music, I'm gonna let these guys, Andy and Joe, know what's a good deal. I'm not gonna let the band take a bad deal. But my inclination is, you know, who really fucking cares who owns it, bro? We're gonna die. You get what I mean? Let's go.
In our industry, like to be a rock band right now or anytime, really, since I don't know the '70s or something, like it's like it wasn't like a great lucrative decision to do with our lives in the first place. It's kind of like
There's a rejection. You have to reject your job, and you're like,
kinda
no,
like-
most objective
well,
way
it's
to
kind of
put
like
it,
we'll
yes,
take the
it's
ride.
not a
Oh,
great-
lucrative? Yeah, that's
It's
not the
kinda
word.
like-
Well,
decision.
it's like take the
Lucrative
like
in any context, morally or
we're
mentally,
kind of knocking
emotionally,
on that door in the
physically.
first place. Like, yeah, we're trying to do something a little bit crazy and trying to
Right.
be in a rock band in the
I'm
first
back.
place. And so it's like, if somebody offers you tickets to the ride and it's like, hey, you came in here, you played some rock and roll music, I like it, you want to get on this ride and sign your name in blood, you only live once. And
So that's what extol means. So Souls Extolled is when I say we are Souls Extolled, and they make fun of me. I say, you know what, man? Our band name actually means something.
exactly. And
Most
it's
other bands
togetherness,
don't.
though.
And
That means
if
like a
people
collective,
don't know what
right?
our band name means, like if they don't even care, then I'm doing a bad job.
This isn't
Because
some
they should
fucking
want to.
early
They should listen to the
2000s
music
band
and go,
name
what does it
generator.
mean? And they say Souls Extolled. And when we're up there raging, like you guys saw, we're
Fucking Souls
extolling
Extolled
our
club.
souls, bro. We're literally worshiping ourselves. We're in
It means
pure
to
moments
celebrate.
of
It means
bliss
it really does.
and
Mean,
happiness,
it really
you
does
know?
mean to
It means,
celebrate.
alright, we're starting with me. Zach knew me on like Facebook, and I broke a keyboard stand. And right before a show, I was like, "Does anyone got a keyboard stand?" And Zach had a keyboard stand. I met him for a beer, and we hung out and talked for a long time. It was cool. But then, like maybe a while after that, my band played with him on a boat party in Souls Extolled, and it was just these three guys back then. And then, like halfway through last year is when I actually started playing with them.
Yeah, I feel like I thought of it and sent you a message out of nowhere one time. Like, hey man, I don't know if you got the time, but
Yeah, so
we've been wanting a synth player for a while, you know. I'm a fan of his other band, Trouble in the Streets. They're fucking super
Thank you,
sick.
man.
So I knew him because I was going to his band shows.
Nice.
You know what I mean? So that's why I didn't ask him to be in the band for a long time because, you know, I figured he was really busy. Also, you're in like 10 bands. You
I'm in
know?
a few. I'm in 3 right now, but yeah. But yeah,
Um,
no, it's awesome. And it's been cool, like, being the synth guy for this band. Like, I've mostly been, like, more in rock bands and more recently been doing the synth thing. So, like, in this band, I feel like it's kind of like that, trying to be that sound that people don't even necessarily know that there's a synth, but there's just something kind of big behind everything.
We've been
else.
trying to make it where you don't know where my guitar ends and his synth starts.
Yes, I was so pumped when
Almost-
y'all had a
almost-
second guitar
Nice.
player.
Almost symphonic. I guess
So the
that's
three of
best
us,
adjective.
man. I had a band. I was actually a bunch of different bands. But at a certain point after college, everything was kind of like chilling out, and I had a lot of time. And I started I had always had my like acoustic project going. Like I hadn't really promoted it a lot, but I'd played a lot in different places around Texas, like just on my own. So I just rode with that and was playing acoustic music. And I knew Joe because I was a fan of his band as well, Fair City Fire. Brian, Clinton, Brett.
Yeah.
Bunch of fucking badasses, bro. So, like, guys who, same with his band, showed me how it's done. I was like a 19, 20-year-old kid going to see them play. And through one of my bandmates who was dating a girl that knew you guys is how I met you. We went to a gig one time, and I met, and then JP, Samir Durrani, who I imagine has probably been on this show. He plays with all the WTF guys, and me and him met because one of my best friends who's not a musician is from the same town that he's from, around Houston, and they introduced me. So original band. When I got a bunch of gigs, like I played at Flamingo, and I was gonna play with a bunch of big reggae bands. I was opening for Audic Empire. These are
Nice.
some of my best friends. Shout out to those guys.
That's it.
And I was like, man, I don't want to play this huge stage on my own. So literally, I just hit up like drummers and bass players that I knew, and like Samir had introduced me to John, and Fair City Fire, I knew Joe, and I went and played like an open mic somewhere where me and you chatted, and you said you might be down.
Oh yeah.
You know,
Fourth Tap.
at
Brewery.
Fourth Tap, yeah.
Fourth Tap Brewery.
I went and played an open mic at Fort Tap, and we chatted. And so basically, I just brought him on to some of these gigs playing downtown, like paid tourist gig type of shit.
Well, my
And,
favorite thing too is that we were the Zach Black band.
Zach Black and Friends.
Black and Friends before we started
Yeah,
doing
nice.
Souls Extolled, and then we were doing Zach Black and Friends, and then I'll never forget it. I was in New York, and I got a phone call, and like Zach was calling. I was right in the middle of my soup dumplings, And Zach called me, and I was like, "Hey, Zach's calling me. I'll be right back." And I like went off to the side, and then Zach was like, "Hey, man, this, Zach Black and Friends is fun, but I want to play rock and roll. Like, I want to play more fucking rock and in-your-face stuff, man. Like, is that cool? Should we do that? Like, can we do that?" And it was like, "Yeah, man. Yeah, let's do that. Like, as soon as I'm back, dude, like, I can't wait. Let's fucking rock." And so, what was it called? Soon as thereafter, it was, that was February of 2019.
You came back, we had a couple we had one practice with the electric and a bunch of new songs, and then we played that house party with Sleeve Cannon.
Yeah.
With Anton.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
And so it was like...
At sex, remember the address? It was like sex therapy?
My input.
Yeah.
Sex therapy
Oh,
club.
shit.
But it was like, yeah, man, let's play this rock. Like, let's do the rock stuff.
And then from then, man, it honestly just, like... It just...
Snowballed.
It just rolled. You know what I mean? I've never been in a project that happened, and I think a lot of it's just because we all had done so much in the music, and we all did our own thing for so long that the combination of us rolled. But our first South by, man, like we played like 7 or 8 like great shows. You know what I'm saying? So
one weekend, or was it like
so we only planned one show because we started in February. South by's in March, so I was like, we're not gonna have any shows. So I planned super epic house party with Trace and Lime, Have to Have. And we packed this house in West Campus and like we made money and like had a great fucking show. Right. And it was awesome.
Wait, was that when the fire alarm went off?
That's where we met. Yeah. That's where we met the guy from Waco.
Yes,
fucking,
we did meet a person from Waco, but also the fire alarm went off that night. And it was really
Brody Gamble.
Yeah, Brody Gamble.
Gamble.
And he hooked up with a bunch of. We made a bunch of.
Shout out to Brody.
But yeah, so we just had like.
You're doing good.
And ever since then, man, it just snowballed, man. Like obviously, COVID was slow. But
did you guys still practice during that time period? Or
we were all quarantined
for
4 months or something.
Yeah,
right?
we did it. We definitely,
we were all seriously quarantined.
Before,
I had no choice. I'm a blue collar worker, so I was in quarantine. I had to work.
Well,
we all kept we all took a moment at least, at the very least, from just playing with each other, and it was like, okay, like we're not going out if we don't need to. Basically, instead of playing in the garage, we were going to anti-police protests.
Yeah.
And so we were like out there at the fucking 35.
Joe pulled us out.
No. You know what? You know what though? We were there in order to support. Because
Joe pulled us out there, man, and basically like me and John were I'm from a military family. John's super Texan, and we were like. Basically, we were saying we don't believe in
me.
Only in the genetic sense. I'm Texan.
We were saying we don't really necessarily believe in nonviolent protests, man. So we went down there and we just had a bunch of water in our cars and shit. And when people were getting tears, we were like helping wash out their eyes and doing that stuff. And then Joe hit us up and said, "Come to this spot where you can see I-35." And we got there. And all the people had taken I-35 and the cops started moving, and they just started beating the shit out of people, man.
Really?
Beating the shit out of people.
I saw a kid get hit with a
They started shooting.
We were right there down. We were literally in the same hill as that kid.
At that point,
really?
Like
they were just like blasting.
Because this was up on the hill.
Like a bottle fight.
No. I mean, like this was up on the hill right there at fucking what's it called? Like 7th, 8th Street.
All right.
6th, whatever. Right there on the hilltop by the French Legion. The French, thing, and we were chilling up there on the side, and we were chilling there. I mean, like people were doing things, they were doing their stuff, but I mean, like they still shot this dude like right down the way from where we were. It was like in the face
prior to
with
being
a
up on the side
like,
when Joe called us over there, and we saw this shit happening on the highway. Is when he was like, "I'm going," and we were like, "We gotta go too." And it was just like people were getting mauled and shit on the highway, and we were like, we wanted to stand out of it. Me and
like cars being like,
no, there was no cars. Hold on, let me explain.
It was a thing of just we wanted to provide support, whether it was water, whether it was things.
We went over and we went up onto the highway with all the people. And then the cops were flying around in helicopters saying, if you guys don't move, we're going to use lethal force.
Oh, shit.
And everyone was like stacking up against the cops. And then we were right there when they really started going ham and started shooting rubber bullets and shit like that. Like me and JP were right next to a dude who got hit in the face and like his whole jaw got like ripped off the side of his face, man. And like I was trying to get everyone to back up slowly because now the cops were coming forward and there's a bunch of like, unfortunately, if I controlled the protest, there wouldn't be like old people out there, people
Was
in
there, like, people with,
wheelchairs
like, their
and shit.
kids, like, old
no,
people and
there's
shit, or,
people
like-
not with their kids, but
Oh,
there's
where?
people out there, man, who like when we went there, I was like, guys, if shit goes down, we're gonna meet back at this point. But it was under the assumption that we can all run when shit goes down.
Like,
There was a
start
lot of
chasing
people
you
out there
and
who could not run. So when they started shooting the bullets, man, and stuff, like for me, I shoot
What do you mean
guns.
they couldn't run? Like they were just dead.
No,
I've never-
no,
I've
well,
never
see,
heard-
the thing
I've
about
never-
it.
Let me finish.
When-
Let me finish. I've never heard gunshots when I'm not wearing headgear. Because I grew up in Hawaii. Here, I bought guns, shot them. I never heard like that explosion at gunpower.
It's not as loud.
And when
as
you're
it's-
15, when you're 15,
But
20
it-
yards,
it hits
and you're
you
seeing
right
those
here.
orange shotguns, you're seeing the muzzle blast.
Yeah, and seeing the
And then
beams
you're
coming at you
smelling
and shit,
gunpowder.
like-
There's
You
tear
hope it's
gas
not
in the
coming
air,
at
and you
you.
see people collapsing. You see
I'm
people
saying-
getting hit and
Dropping and
falling. Right?
Right.
You think my instincts were like, you're going to die.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
Damn.
And so, you know,
At
we
least
were
get
trying
hurt.
to be like, hey, everyone,
Right, or
calm
get
back,
fucked up.
move back slowly and shit, because everyone's confused. There's all these people yelling in the crowd.
Like, I
and
can't
people
believe
are,
they're doing this,
people
or
are
is
starting
it
to get
like,
trampled.
And the crazy,
Well, no, because once they start firing the shots and stuff, man, some people are like, stand your ground. Other people are like,
So
get the
some
fuck
people
out of
are
here.
dead.
right? No,
Everyone's
no, no. I mean,
it's-
that's
it's
exactly what it
pure
was.
fucking
and you know what?
chaos,
You know what?
real
We
pure
went,
living in a
chaos.
real
we
life
went and did that.
situation.
We went and did that too. Like, you know, we got up there and we did our part. I feel like as far as being out there and just trying to be like, hey man, like.
But
this
John
isn't okay,
John
but-
did some
but-
heroic shit, man. Seriously.
thing about it
we
is
all
the-
ran out,
the-
man,
the-
and that guy who got shot was laying on the fucking ground, and cops were like coming in, and everyone was running off the
Well-
highway, and John turned around and went and grabbed him and
Right.
fucking dragged him out.
And we have
And
have
like there was cops
and
and
we
shit,
have
like,
like
around John, like they didn't even fuck with him, but he grabbed him and like was pulling him out, and you know what I mean. And then a bunch of people else
and
helped
we have
out.
and we have
it was,
like we
it
have
was
footage
crazy,
of this
man.
shit happening of like John taking
They
up
should
this
make a music
guy.
video.
And we
Yeah,
no we did.
I
We
have a
actually
video.
have
I
we
have
have
a
the
video.
footage somewhere, but
I
like
have it on my phone.
the crazy thing about this stuff too is that we did all that. So all that happened, right? So we go out to this protest. We're shot at. People are shot at. We see them being shot at. Like tear gas is flowing. We've all been tear gassed at this point. Like we've all got stinky eyes.
Hell
Like
of a
you know,
panic
like we can't sit here. Like we can't see through through our eyeballs. We're doing all this crazy stuff and whatnot, and we come back and I think we go into the garage like a day later. 2 days later or whatever. And after that experience together, Allegiant.
The song just fucking came out,
yeah,
bro.
Allegiant
You started
Swine.
playing
So
the
we have a
bass line?
song.
So that
You know?
experience.
So, yeah,
made
so we have a
We
song,
wrote that.
and we
when I
didn't-
sit
we
down
didn't
and
know
write
we-
songs, man, I try to write them
Right.
and they don't happen, or they just like blabber out.
No.
But that almost never happens with the band. I blabber it out like at some time with my acoustic. I scratch a few chords and we do it. And this time, John started playing the bass line. We
Right.
started rocking, and right there on my phone, within maybe 10 minutes,
Right, and
I
we
wrote
didn't
the whole
have
song.
like
Just
we didn't
boom.
have any of this
It was
stuff
a very,
pre-planned or anything like that. But I don't know. There was a raw feeling of coming from this moment in the middle of the city. Bless you, child. Bless you, child. There was
Satan
this
help me.
there was this
Those
there was
people,
this
those-
feeling, this raw moment of coming from the city in this moment where there was all this stuff happening and just this destruction and this fight for lives, this fight for Black lives, like this whole like fight for equity in this moment. And we went through it, and then we went home, and literally what poured out of that moment was Allegiant Swine. And we didn't record Allegiant Swine tonight in this thing, but if you go back and listen to Allegiant Swine, that song is dripping with just that day. That day,
It was
that
anguish, man.
moment,
It was
that,
anguish.
that
It
anguish,
wasn't-
like, I
it
mean,
wasn't so much that we have any real hate for anybody, man.
No,
it's not
no, no.
about that. It was just that for us,
Miscommunication.
we saw 6th and Congress, man. Or sorry, 6th and 35, a place where our most beautiful memories have taken place, man. As Austinites, South by Southwest and the good times after ACL and all the good shit, man. And to me, man, all my family members have been to war. I haven't. But to see the closest thing I've ever seen to a war zone, and to see people getting mauled in the streets by what I look at from a military family, looking at the police as my brothers and sisters, you know, as us against us.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
Just come here, the war that we were doing in Iraq
using
and shit's,
full
like, moving
militarized
here.
weaponry, man, and just that imagery for us, man, it shook us, and for me, man, it made me realize that like
The government's not
the shit that it's just that we take for granted peace. It wasn't even. I have a lot of assumptions that are much more politically charged. But if there's any assumption that I think everyone can relate to, is that we realize that our country has some kind of moral, emotional decay going on, and I think we have to try to fix it.
Do you think
know?
that situation with the whole takeover of I-35, do you think that was like a precursor and there's going to be more occurrences where these clashes are going to happen, or do you think it's just kind of like a phase? There'll be like some peacetime in between now that we're kind of like moving forward with shit.
I think clashes like that will happen when people have days off.
When there's nothing going on.
It's
like
like
I mean, like we did, that was why they happened the first time. You know, people had to,
being from
people
a
weren't
conservative
working,
family,
people weren't
tell me,
doing a thing.
What
they
you
were
guys
doing their
did,
stuff,
all the shit made no difference. It made no difference, right? And you know what I say? Well, the protests.
Oh.
They're saying all the shit you guys did, all the protests, all the riots, whatever they call it, it made no difference. You know what I say?
But it was like a visual.
Well, here's
thing
what I
to,
tell
like,
them.
awareness,
Hold
like-
on. What I tell them is, why are we talking about it then?
Exactly. Yeah, it's still a continuous conversation.
And that's what
Well-
I got to shout out to the Blue Scholars from Seattle. Huge hip hop influence on me, and they're all about Marxist shit, which is kind of my bag. But they say it's the Long March. Every single little protest, every single little challenge is part of the long march to the ultimate liberation of the human spirit.
Right.
You get what I'm saying?
Like, I feel like everything, like, you know, like we fought a revolutionary war.
Multiple,
Like, and, multiple,
time,
but like, you know, at the beginning of this country, we fought one, and that was for more, you know, equality and representation of like people who were previously unrepresented. But that fell short on so many levels for so many different groups of people. That fell short.
Because the term
still, we were still
was
had
subjective
exactly
to what their
I mean,
interpretation
people
of
fighting
what people
that
constituted
exactly. They were still having slaves and everything back then, and so it's like, and then more wars since then have happened. In this battle, you know, like, yeah, we didn't solve everything, but like,
do you think it'll
Derek
ever be solved,
Chauvin's
though? There's
gonna
no,
be in
like,
jail.
solving
Like,
It's another
he's
step
going,
forward.
that
Evolution
motherfucker
of-
is going to jail.
Might not be the answer that everybody wants, but this is the most, like, in my opinion, the most objective view of our current climate in terms of like how we view each other and how we view other people who aren't living in our proximity. I think always that it has always been embedded within our down to a fucking genetic level. We have been destined to always find a problem to solve. And if there's not a problem there to solve, whether it's an energy problem, whether it's some sort of cultural, you know, dissonance, we're gonna find a fucking problem or we're gonna make a problem.
So it's like create the problem and then create
And
a solution.
do
you think it's a monetary thing
I
at
don't
that
want to
point?
be, and I don't want to, I'm not, and I don't mean to sound pessimistic because like this is not something that's like we have evolved as a very like we have the capacity to think abstractly, you know, or to have abstract thought, to have empathy. Like that's something that like maybe like two other species in the world fucking in our own known world like share.
I would say
You know,
zero.
Well, yes. Yeah, I mean, I would say
our
zero,
level.
but
Yeah,
like
dolphins
technically speaking, you know,
Dolphins
like
are pretty
maybe
well,
I don't know, maybe dolphins feel the same.
Either
kind of
way,
fucking-
either
Do you
way.
feel like it's
Yeah, so we got lots of shit coming up, man. We got new tracks for you guys. We got a new record on the way. And gotta shout out mad love to Tomahawk Studios and all these boys over here for giving us a platform, letting us talk shit. We hope you guys
are
enjoyed
awesome.
the interview. And
See you on the sugar shack.
rock and roll to the end of time, motherfuckers. Never let it stop. It lives through you. All right? Keep on going. Yeah! Woo!